For many, many years now, Steve King has been the unrestrained id of the Republican Party. The Iowa congressman says demeaning things about immigrants. He retweets white nationalists and neo-Nazi groups and is cheered on by them. He endorses white nationalists and neo-Nazi candidates in other countries, including once tweeting, quote, "Culture and demographics are our destiny. We can't restore our civilization with somebody else's babies." And Congressman King has, for the most part, gone unrebuked by his own party for all of this, even as he has moved from the fringe closer to his party's mainstream. But apparently now the GOP has decided Steve King is keeping it a little too real after he told the New York Times, quote, "White nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? Why did I sit in classes teaching me about the merits of our history and our civilization?" You're saying the quiet part out loud again, Congressman. And I'm not sure exactly why this time is different. But this particular quote has unleashed quite a torrent of criticism of Steve King from his fellow Republicans, including support for his new 2020 primary challenger. Tim Scott, the Senate's only black Republican, writes in the Washington Post, quote, "Some in our party wonder why Republicans are constantly accused of racism. It is because of our silence when things like this are said." So why does the Republican Party seem to suddenly be waking up to Steve King? Why now? And is it too late now that Donald Trump is in the White House and the GOP has become more Steve King's party than ever? Joining us now is Jason Johnson, politics editor for TheRoot.com. Great to have you with us. And Jason, I don't know where you were when Steve King said the thing in Cleveland where he said that subgroups have never contributed anything to civilization, only, Western European civilization. But that didn't cause a torrent of outrage. Why now?
Because they just lost. I mean, that's the only reason the Republicans care. It's like, oh, we got shellacked in December, so now suddenly we care about the fact that we've got bigots in our party. Look, Steve King is a white nationalist. He's not just a racist. I always say this is important. He is a white nationalist. That means he really doesn't believe that anyone who is not a white Christian should have an active role in how government, the economy, or education works. He's made that clear. His constituents have obviously reelected him. He is not an outlier in the Republican Party. His views pretty much align with the President of the United States. And now everybody's going to pretend to rend their cloth and be concerned about it. But he's not going to go anywhere because you have too many people in the party who agree with him.
And, one of the things I think people forget is that long before Donald Trump said he was going to build a wall that Mexico is supposed to pay for, Steve King wanted to build a wall for the exact same reason. I wonder if that has gone down the memory hole with the GOP as well.
Well, all of it has. I mean, look, the guy has a long, long history of this. But Joy, what I find is really important, because we saw the president do this. I'm a nationalist as opposed to a globalist. Steve King is like, I'm a nationalist. All of this sort of playing with linguistics is a way to sort of mainstream this idea of white nationalism. When Steve King says, I'm a nationalist, it's like R. Kelly saying, I like kids. We know what you're talking about, right? You're not fooling anyone at this particular point. And I think it's important for anybody who's concerned about the health of this democracy, let alone people who live in Iowa, has to recognize that white nationalists are basically terrorist sympathizers. Because the only way you can get rid of all the black and brown and tan people in this country is to treat them with violence, to refuse to give them an opportunity to participate in the American experiment. And so anyone who says, well, I don't really remember what Steve said, or maybe it's bad now, or Ben Shapiro coming out and saying, well, this crosses the line, you've been letting him and people like him cross the line in the party for years, and now you have to view it as a national security issue, not just a political damage issue.
But I wonder, too, if once, members of the Republican Party have opened up the door on Steve King, whether or not then you can then push the door back closed. You have Ron DeSantis, who ran for governor, who's now the governor of Florida, who opened with Monkey It Up. You have Brian Kemp with extensive suppression of African-American voters. You have the newly elected senator or re-elected senator from Mississippi who talked about going to a public hanging. It kind of goes on, and it ends up in the White House with Donald Trump, Charlottesville, and on and on. Can Republicans shut the door again and not talk about all of the other people?
Well, they can not talk about it, Joy, but again, once you put that hood on, it's hard to pull off. It fits really, really tight, and it seems to help you with voters sometimes. Look, the issue for the Republican Party is not getting rid of their bigots, right? I don't think you can do that. Democrats can't get rid of all their bigots. The issue for the Republican Party is how much are we going to allow our bigots to have influence on our policy? You can't do anything about Steve King. I don't think he should be removed because obviously he reflects the attitude of his voters. But a man who is a white nationalist is fundamentally at odds with how America is supposed to operate. So he should be removed from committees. He should be removed from positions where his bigotry, which is anti-American, can have an influence on policy. That is the line that Republicans need to cross. All of this, whether we talk about him, whether we primary him, because they're just going to look for somebody who has the same nasty belief system but knows how to say it in nicer terms. That's what Republicans have been saying about Trump for the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's all about manners, good manners. Jason Johnson, politics editor at Root.com. Always great to talk to you, man. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Joy.
Appreciate it. That does it for